While the mean tends to be what we think of as the average or central value, there are actually other types of calculations that can also represent the center. The next one is median. For median, we use the symbol X with the little curly over it, the little tilde, so it's X tilde. And this is literally when you write all of the data values in order, it's the one in the middle. Now you'll only actually have a number in the middle if you have an odd number of values. So if you have an even number, the middle would fall between two of them. You take the 2 in the middle and find the mean of those. So add them together, divide by 2. So we'll do 2 examples. In the first example, we have 5 test scores and we want to find the median. The first thing you need to do is take those test scores and put them in order, and then once you have them in numerical order, since there are 5 of them, you can find the middle, which would be the third. So you go find the one in the middle, and the median will be 79. Now you do have to watch out. We talked about these rounding rules in the last part of this section, and because all of these are whole numbers, the median needs to be rounded one more decimal place, so out to 1 decimal place. So because 79 comes out even and doesn't have any decimal places, we're going to have to put a 0.0 on the end. So final answer would be 79.0. We'll do a second example with an even number of test scores, a little bit longer list. When there are an even number of values, in this case there are 20, then you'll need to find the 2 that are in the middle. So that would be the 10th and the 11th. Now these aren't in increasing order, but they are in decreasing order, so we can still use the list the way it's written. So if you go over and find the 10th and the 11th in the list, that would be 87 and 85. So we're going to go ahead and add those up and divide by 2. And again, even though that comes out even, we do need to have 1 decimal place in our answer, so we'll add a 0.0 on the end. This brings us to the first time we're going to talk about how to find things on the calculator. So you'll want to have your calculator out. Now here I have some PowerPoints for quick reference on the calculator. You may want to hold on to those for later. If you need more in-depth detailed walkthrough of how to do this on the calculator, I do have a video posted on my webpage that is just the calculator portion and walks you through it in a little bit more detail. So we're going to use the 5 test scores as our example, and I'm going to show you how to find the mean and the median on your calculator. Now, like I said, I'm going to walk through this pretty quickly, so if you want to pause to have time to actually try this on your calculator, you can go ahead and do that, or you can just watch it quickly for now and then go back and walk through it with me again in the separate video. So first thing you need to do is actually get the list of data into your calculator. So you're going to press the Stat button, and then that's going to bring up the first screen that I have pictured there, and choose Edit, the very first choice, and that'll bring up the second screen. And under L1, go ahead and just type in all of the test scores. Now we can go ahead, and if those were not in order, the calculator can put them in order for us. Now a lot of times you won't need this, but if you're trying to find a median and you want to do it, the calculator can help you put those in order so that you can find the 2 that are in the middle or the 1 that's in the middle. And there are other times when putting these in order is helpful. Maybe if you're trying to do a frequency distribution and it's helpful to have everything in order to count how many are in each category. So this can be used for some different things. You hit the Stat button again, but this time you go down to choice number 2, Sort A, which stands for sort in ascending order, so smallest to largest. And then that'll bring you back out to the main screen with just Sort A on the screen, and you'll need to tell it which list. You had L1, L2, L3. You need to tell it which one you want it to sort. And so if you look at your keypad, the L1, L2 options are above the numbers 1, 2, 3, and so on. So you're going to have to hit your second button and then the 1 for L1. And then if you go back into Stat and Edit and look at your list again, it will be sorted. Now the one variable statistics screen is one of the most important. We're going to use this one a lot. Now that your data is in there, you do not have to sort it before you use this screen. Go ahead and press the Stat button. This time we're going to arrow over to the Calc menu. These are the different calculations the calculator can do for you. And you're going to choose the first one, the one variable stats. Now when you first choose it, it's just going to put that phrase on the screen. You do have to hit enter again to make it do anything. And then once you've hit enter to run that command, it should bring up a screen that looks like the one here on the left. So you can see right at the top is X bar. That's your mean. So 74.4 in this case for those 5 test scores. There are some other symbols that we don't need. It's added up the X values and so on. The N at the bottom tells you how many there were. If you had a larger list, that might be helpful. And then if you hit the down arrow on your calculator, there are some other pieces of information. If you scroll down to MED, that's the median. So the median on this one would be 79. Now it does not know to put the 0.0 on the end. You need to remember when you're writing these down to put the 0.0 on the end. Also use proper notation. The calculator uses MED, but you should use the X with the tilde symbol. You can also use your calculator to find the mean of a frequency distribution. Remember, frequency distributions have 2 columns, the classes and the frequencies. And we talked about how first you had to find the midpoint for each of those classes. You do go ahead and do that first. And then when you go into Stat Edit, you go ahead and put the midpoints under the first list and then the frequencies under the second list. Go back and run the one-var stats again, but this time you'll need to tell it that you don't just want it to do the first column, you want it to do both, and so you'll say L1, comma L2. So you'll type in the one-var stats, and before you hit enter, you'll type in L1, comma L2, and then hit enter. And then we do have 2 more measures of center that are used less often. One is mid-range. The mid-range is the average of the highest and lowest scores in the list. It can be a bit misleading. It can be way off from the mean and the median, so you don't see it used too often. And then the last one is the mode, which is just the number in the list. If any of them repeat, it's the number that repeats the most number of times. So this isn't even necessarily in the center, it's just the most common. So we'll use it sometimes, but not a lot. If there's a tie and you have 2 that repeat the same number of times and they tie for the most, they're both the mode. So that would be a bimodal. If none of the values repeat, then there might be no mode at all. The mean, the median, and the mode all come together when you talk about distributions. We talked about distributions being symmetric or skewed left or skewed right, and that's actually affected by whether the mean, the median, or the mode is the highest value. So here you can see that what happens is a symmetric distribution is when the mean, the median, and the mode are all about the same and they're right in the center. Whereas if it's skewed left or right, that's because the mean is actually to the left of the median if it's skewed left, and the mean is actually to the right of the median if it's skewed right. And so that's why the distributions become the way they are.